In 1990, Elizabeth Newman, a PhD candidate at Stanford University, ran an experiment. In this experiment, one participant would tap out the rhythm of a very popular song, while another participant tried to guess what song they were tapping out. The person tapping out the song thought that the recipient would guess it correctly about 50% of the time. In actuality, it was about 2.5% of the time. Dungeon Masters build rich fantasy worlds all in our heads. We think up deep NPCs, complex situations, dungeons that exist in the depths beneath mountains, and the monsters that lurk in there. And then we try to take this world in our head and we transfer it over to our players. And our hope is that our players are grabbing quite a bit of what we're handing out. But the reality might not be nearly as much as we think. Players probably aren't understanding about half of what we're describing to them. At any given time, we could be describing a situation that could be crystal clear in our heads, and our players have no idea what we're talking about. There's lots of situations where this can come up. A player might not realize how powerful a monster is that they're about to face. The player might not understand the room that they're in, or what part of it they should be defending against, or what part they should be worried about, or what parts of it are safe. The players may not grab onto a quest that you made very apparent to them. The players may grab some other quest you never even thought of and start running with it, and you had no idea they were even going to follow it at all. The players might misinterpret an NPC's mannerisms or interactions for something either hostile or friendly when it was exactly the opposite. The players might grab onto a piece of lore thinking it's a major part of the plot when it was just a piece of history to build the world around them. The players might go after the wrong villain or completely skip the right one. The players make a poor choice about what area they need to defend or what area they should be able to take a rest in. The players miss a very obvious, safe path and instead pick one that's far more dangerous. The players fully expect a room to be trapped and spend a lot of time searching that room for traps, or they go into a room that's obviously trapped and completely skip any kind of trap detection. I think DMs hold their cards close more often than they should. I think that a lot of the times we have information that we want to hold back because we think we'd be making the game too easy, or we'd be leading the players on, or their characters should know something, or they need to say the exact right thing for us to reveal the information that we have. And instead, our players probably just aren't grasping what's going on. I think we should be a lot more free with the information that we have. I think we should be on their side of the table and recognizing that the players are not their characters. They might not be understanding what situation is actually in front of their characters. And it's up to us to help the players understand what their characters actually see of the situation. The players aren't adventurers. Their life isn't really on the line. They're busy people. They have lives and jobs and families of their own. They have a lot of things going on in their head. And for us to expect that they're going to understand every single detail of our game when we throw it out there and remember everything that we've ever passed, it's not likely to happen. But instead, we can remember that their characters are full-time adventurers. The characters are smart. They're well-trained. They understand what's going on there, and their lives are on the line. Their eyes are on the things that we're just describing to the players. They can see it. They can smell it. They can feel it. And we need to make sure that we're giving the players the kind of information that their characters would have. So don't be afraid to tell the players what their characters see and what their characters feel and what their characters can smell when they're in the situation. Reiterate it. Tell them more than once. Repeat yourself. It'll be okay. A lot of times we try to hide information behind the colorful descriptions that we have, when sometimes we just need to tell players what's going on. Some examples are, go ahead and tell them when there's a legendary foe. If they're facing a legendary encounter, tell them it's legendary so they know they won't blow their big spells only to be automatically saved. Remember what Gandalf said, this foe is beyond any of you. Go ahead and tell them if they're facing a foe that's most likely going to kill them. Describe what happened in the last turn of combat and describe what situation exists in front of the characters every time the character is up in combat. A lot of times players are going to kind of fade out when combat is going on and it's not their turn. So you want to tell them what part of the situation is going on right around them when it's their turn to actually act. Tell them when the characters have exhausted all of the information they're going to get from an NPC. Or if they've explored a room thoroughly, tell them they've found everything that they're going to find in this room. Tell them that they have thoroughly examined a hallway for traps and found that there are no traps there. Now, of course, you can't screw them on that and then say, you forgot about this one trap, or your passive perception wasn't high enough. You don't get to say there are no traps in this hallway and then spring a trap on them. If the characters have multiple options, reiterate and reinforce what those options are. Tell them what those options are. When they're in the middle of a dungeon, remind them why they're there. Remind them what quest they're on. A lot of times players are going to forget, especially if you have players that are playing in multiple games or they're playing other video games, they're going to forget what quest they're on. Reiterate what quest they're on so they know why they're in the location that they're in and what they need to do. Be careful with red herrings. A lot of times we think it'd be fun to throw some false information in front of the players, but that could waste a lot of time when they chase down a false lead only to find out it wasn't true. Do you really want to spend that amount of game time only to be like, you were wrong? I don't think so. I think it's best if we kind of stick to telling them the things that they learn that are probably the truth. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy for them to dissect what's true, but we could do better than by having an NPC that leads them in a completely wrong direction for 3 or 4 sessions. Players are only grabbing about half of what you're throwing their way. While we like to think that when we're tapping a song out with our finger that they totally know what song we're playing, the likelihood is they don't. Lean on the side of giving too much information away. Let them know what's going on. Tell them what's going on. Tell them what their characters would know. Tell them the kinds of things that are going on in the game. Show them the structure of the game that you're running so they can understand how to navigate it. You can do a lot of this by staying in character and describing things from the point of views of their character, but sometimes you can also just take a step back and explain to the players exactly the way the game is supposed to operate so that they'll follow the path that'll make it most fun for everybody else. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, you can help me out by subscribing to the Sly Flourish newsletter, supporting me directly on Patreon, picking up any of my books at the Sly Flourish bookstore, or subscribing to this video right here on YouTube. Thank you very much. Have a great day and get out there and play some D&D.